Well, here we are. This is the moment of truth. We're going to set both of these in. My epoxy is mixed. Bubbles are coming out. I'm not going to, I'm just using this epoxy to hold these fixtures in, so I'm not going to debubble it or do any of that. It's starting to make a little heat. It's starting to get juicy. I've got 2 of these set up. This one is going in as a complete assembly. It is dropping down in. I've got shims up here in the front. It will sit under its own weight. This piece here gets left in the stock forever. Same thing here, only I'm doing this one differently. This piece right here, I've just made it, put a bunch of relief cuts in it, sandblasted it, got the holes plugged with silly putty, same thing in here. It's time to find out if these go in and don't leak all over the floor. I've been epoxying, I got the chassis epoxied into the left-handed gun. Today is my epoxying day. Been prepping and prepping and prepping, and one thing I need to tell you guys, those of you that haven't done this before, or even those that, I guess those that will be able to empathize with what I'm doing. The whole secret to epoxying is pre-planning. Get ahead. This stuff's got a pot life. Once you're committed, you're committed. So I've thought this through. I'm at the point where I'm ready to dump. And so it may well be that I'll spring a leak. It may well be that I'll get dumped in and find out I went with too much or too little or whatever, but I've gone through gallons of epoxy, so I think I have a pretty good grab on what is needed here. So we've dumped some epoxy into this channel here, and in this case there's no need for thickener, there's no need for thixotropics. We are dumping this in loosey goosey juicy. My trick here is to dump it in, and then before I drop, I am going to give it my best shot at leveling just the epoxy. I'm just going to look down in there and say, okay, this looks like I've got a pretty level eye. Being from construction, I can see things that are out of level from a mile away. And I've got a homemade level in here. So there we've got a pretty good, you can't see any of this, but I'm just showing you as the build progresses. I'm not going to bore you, hopefully, with all kinds of inanities, but I want to show you just how well I'm affixing these in here. This is going in forever. And there are things about it that don't make a lot of sense at this point, like why all the holes, what's this thing here, and that's fine. We don't need to know that. I'm going to dump some more epoxy into this guy. All this does is saves me from squirting it in later. I'm looking for a better way. Earlier in one of the videos I showed you how I use pipettes for bedding pillars. It wasn't on either one of these guns. But pipettes are handy, but they're a pain to load, and they only have a little bit. I have dozens and dozens of various, ooh, she's bubbling up out of here. I have dozens of that's going in nice though. Syringes. I have syringes in all different sizes, and syringes are a way, but here's the real mechanical issue with syringing epoxy in. Earlier today, by the way, I tried something I've been meaning to try for a long time. I took a heavy duty Ziploc, no I didn't, it was a light duty Ziploc bag. I mixed like I just did, I dumped into a Ziploc bag, I squeezed all the air out, ran it all to one corner, and before the other corner was even wet with epoxy, I nipped off just a tiny little corner. And then I used it like a cake decorating tool, turned it over, and it was okay, but frankly it wasn't nearly as cool as I had hoped it was going to be. It was flipping and flopping around. It wasn't a real pretty sight when it was all said and done. So, I'm not going to do that again. I'm looking for a cake decorating tool that will squeeze liquidy epoxy. Haven't found one yet. Just haven't found the proper fix for what I want to do at all. This stock has got so much difference in pitch from top to bottom, it's throwing me off. But this right here, I feel like the top is level. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to find out. That's close. So, time to set another one in. This one here now, if it bleeds up onto the action, I'm not even going to be able to see it. So, this one is a little more... I didn't even put any release agent on this action. Some days I surprise myself with my own silliness. I think I'm going to bring this up just a little bit. So, in case we get high enough to get into the barrel channel that we don't get too crazy there. Well, I don't see any drips yet. Now we're going to go inside of this one. A little bit of it bubbled up into the recoil lug area, and I think I can use it elsewhere. So instead of just letting it sit there, I'm going to drag it forward and force it in. I don't even know why I'm saying this. This has nothing to do with anything that you care about. It's all fine. It looks like we got our mixture right. Looks like we got our numbers right. Everything bubbled up. I got nothing oozing here, nothing anywhere. It should all be down below level. But again, I'm kind of guessing. I had a void. I dumped X amount of material into that void and dropped her on down in there. And if I had more material than there was void, for when I dropped that big Swiss cheese hunk of aluminum down in, I could have been puking out all over the place. Well, at this point I've got no puking. And at this point, if you look right here, you can see what this is. I may dress that up, all those little holes, but this is the cartridge ramp. I might epoxy those full later and make that all look smooth in there, but for right now this is a prototype, and both of these have got, this is actually the cartridge loading ramp. And I went pretty extreme. I put a whole bunch of screws into it. Later, once it's glued down, I'll be able to pull the screws out. Once I get everything bedded in, this thing's going to be in here forever. The screws can now pop out, and then it will just be a piece of aluminum. The screws I will pop out for weight. They're metal. They're steel. You know, and any extra steel is weight that's not needed. So this one is not so important. My 17 pounder is going to be pizza cake. But this little 10.5, it seems like when a guy's building a 10.5, I've only built about 6 of them. But when I'm building a 10.5, man, I am fighting for weight every time I turn around. I'm punching holes and I'm grinding this and I'm moving that and I'm removing weight and just saying. 10.5 pounders are a joke to make weight. This big guy here, should have plenty of room to move. So this is going to be one of my add-in videos. It's not telling you a whole lot. I'm looking under here to see if I've got any leakers. Man, I'm just not leaking. I think I done good. This is laying in there. It touched down on both points like a rock. Punk. So now what should happen is I've got this bedding block in, this stiffening block into this one, because remember, we're taking this whole tuning fork And instead of the action being glued in right here, it's now fastened at 1 or 2 or 3. I got 3 holes in here. I'm going to pull it down with the action. That's number 1. And then I can pull down on a recoil lug, as I've showed you. And I can pull down on one of my sleeves up here. And I have various ideas. I might put a 1/4 inch. I mean, this is obviously going to go down to the 1/4 28 right here. Up in the front, I might start with something really wimpy, like a 440 or something, and use it for a tuning assembly. Leave it float. I don't know. This is the beauty of this. I can just throw these together conventionally and go. I can bed the rear tang and front tang, but I'm going to try not. I'm going to try getting by without having to do that. In a perfect world, I would like this gun right here to be trigger hanging out the bottom, a little homemade loop, an attractive loop of a trigger guard, and the rear tang just floating here. This big dog, I'm going to go ahead and do conventionally. I got all this room here in the back anyway that's all hogged. I mean, it's just grody. So I have to rebuild and clean and whiten. I know how to mix epoxy. I can make that all disappear or paint. This whole stock doesn't matter. This is my mule, man. It has been every color, everything. So I don't really care what it looks like. But that aside, I will make it look like kind of like I meant it. I'll wipe some epoxy and then rebuild it and cover. I have coloring that I can make the epoxy. I can actually top coat this, or shoot, I could spray paint it. Doesn't matter. That's all stuff down the road. Form always follows function. And right now I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse of what I'm doing. Hopefully during the course of this series we'll be out and shooting, and we'll find out if these things actually perform or if I just wasted all of our time looking and talking. I think they're going to shoot just fine.